Well, Dan, fun show. I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
That was just straightforward, like good, nearly 2.5 hours of AEW wrestling. I don't really even have like a top 3 list of complaints. I mean, Thunder Rosa like played to the crowd and lost her advantage. I mean, that happened. Babyfaces shouldn't do that. I think that's about it. No, I'm sure there's a few other things we can get to. But yeah, I mean, I'm just like, wow, this is like some good. This is AEW. Like when you compare to Elimination Chamber, some of the complaints about spending 3.5 hours to watch an hour or so of actual in-ring wrestling. This is AEW kind of, I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but differentiating themselves a bit in that respect. It's like, come out, start with the world title match, recap how it got set up on Collision, let that parlay into an angle for the pay-per-view in a logical way. Nice tag match, a little bit of an unexpected semi-squash for the Brawling Birds. We'll get to that. Then Hangman Page with an actual squash, taking us back to like 1983, which I'm in favor of, which parlayed into another angle. A good sit-down interview to break the pace a little bit with the Bucks and FTR in a conference room. John Moxley doing what John Moxley does every week, just like having a nice, banger of a match. No real character definition, but we'll get to that. And then 2 title matches, an unannounced one, the Trios title to close things out, and right before that, a women's title match. And really everything was like good or very good. Am I wrong, or do you have anything to add to my kind of rare big picture macro start to one?
No, I mean, I was texting with Todd earlier today, and he's mentioned this. I seem to have a streak of co-hosting these shows on good nights, and this was another good one. The thing I really liked about it was, so often when you have a quote unquote extra main event added, it feels very contrived or not organic at all. And this like made perfect sense, and everything added together. And, Tony was upset that the champs had said anytime, any place, but they clearly had said that. Don Callis in that case had a point to say, hey, you set this up, we're calling it in.
Yep.
And it all made sense. It was good. And I think probably it was pretty wise. I don't know that the women's match would have been the strongest main event,
especially with the finish.
Yeah. Excalibur was careful to say, we have 2 main events. But I mean, this was the main event, and it made sense. And good match. And again, everything's adding together. I was, I guess you're not supposed to be happy for the bad guy, but Mark Davis looked legitimately pretty excited there at the end of that match. And, a lot of companies would have wasted him. So I get it. And I approve of him being in a somewhat important position.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I'm glad he got the win there, because he had something to gain and the others didn't, for a trios title. So that was good. We have 2 people in the chat saying that it was that we're overpraising it perhaps compared to their thoughts. Derek Mitchell just saying there has to be some balance. Everything wasn't good, but it was a decent show. Who else was a little bit more down on it? Somebody else was. So, here it is. No, that's Derek again. There's plenty to discuss. I didn't think it hit on all cylinders. Mr. Freshman said, I thought the show was a tad overbooked in my opinion, but it was a good episode nonetheless. So elaborate in the chat or give us a call. Because you give us some talking points here. GWF ESPN counters and says, I thought it was a great, fun show. Standard Deviation says, what a show. And I'm more in that camp.
This wasn't the Australia show from a few weeks ago. I mean, it wasn't designed to be like all main events, but for a TV show that everything had its spot, I thought thumbs up.
Yeah. I mean, it delivered as advertised. It built up the pay-per-view. It felt like a show that wasn't an infomercial, even though it promoted the pay-per-view. I think it was good. If you want to be the challenger brand, is the term Tony Khan has used about AEW, you want to counter-program what WWE's doing. I thought they did it here. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'll stumble upon as we hit on the segments on the show, a few things here and there. But yeah, and chat, please chime in and let us know. What your any gripes or any just good-natured, helpful critiques that you have of certain things that were done. I think this was a balanced show that deserves just kind of marching through it in order rather than kind of randomly, because I don't think there's like the one thing that stood out as ultra controversial or way better than everything else, and everything else was just filler. So I want to start with the MJF Kevin Knight match. They, as I said, they played a little video showing how it was set up on Collision, and then MJF wrestled an 18-minute title defense, beat Kevin Knight. I thought it was really good. It was straightforward. It wasn't like it wasn't chasing star ratings. It wasn't chasing this is awesome chance. It was the wrestlers just looked like they were executing moves well, trying to win a match, and you had a clash of styles. I will say, if we're going to criticize something in this match, it would be Tony Schiavone. Early in the match, MJF takes a cheap shot at Kevin Knight after the ref said break when they were in the corner, and Schiavone said, that was a good move. Take advantage of that if you can. Now, Schiavone's not a heel commentator, so, he's a babyface commentator, and he basically took a fire extinguisher to the heat that MJF's trying to get as a heel by praising him for it. So I don't think it's like this egregious thing, but I think MJF should Tony, love you. Been around for decades. I'm sure I can learn a lot from you. We can tell some old stories. But please, when I'm doing heel moves, do not approve them. I do not want the booing crowd to feel foolish later because Tony Schiavone said it was smart of me and it was a good thing to do. So there's a critique. But honestly, I thought Kevin Knight looked good here. I mean, this is a showcase match for him. And I like that MJF, who's declared he's never leaving AEW, that he's out there and actually, working on TV more. Jason Paul talked for years about it. There's a whole non-pay-per-view viewing audience who thinks he's a loudmouth, but has no idea how good his matches can be because he almost never wrestled on TV. Now he's wrestling on TV, and I think if he wants to become a real locker room leader, as time goes on here, and there's talk of that with CM Punk and Roman Reigns and what it means to, walk around backstage, a little meta kind of backstage stuff. Part of it is like getting out there and just working the way, Moxley sets the pace. MJF's got to, look like he's trying to keep up in that way. Dan, your thoughts on this match?
Yeah, well, one thing I want to point out is at the beginning of the match, as you might expect with kind of an up-and-coming challenger who's not completely established, the crowd was kind of for MJF. And they turned it pretty quickly. And again, some of the things you mentioned, the cheating and the real cockiness, which he's excellent at. I mean, I wasn't sure they were going to turn the crowd that substantially, and they did. I mean, they were really wanting Kevin Knight to win there by the end. And, MJF has quoted being the world champion and what it means to be the world champion. He's kind of patterning himself after Ric Flair in 1982 or Harley Race in 1979. And yeah, he's not wrestling 350 times a year, but as you mentioned, if he's not the champion, he's almost never wrestling. And so for him, he's putting himself out there and saying, okay, I'm the world champion. I'm going to defend the title a week and a half before the pay-per-view and against a worthy challenger and have a good competitive match. And everything was kind of what it should have been.
And the setup, I don't want to say it's contrived. It just felt kind of sudden. I mean, it was clearly a part. They're trying to create a bridge to get to have MJF beat somebody who's aligned with Hangman for the Hangman pay-per-view match. But Kevin Knight elevated himself in losing here. I mean, he's a guy who's hanging out with Speedball in the tag and now Trios division. And now he goes and he holds his own for a pay-per-view length match with a world champion who has built up credibility in AEW for years. And he looked like he belonged in there with him. And, I don't know what his long-term upside is. I don't have a cap on it, but I don't think, for sure he's a main event guy and, he's going to be, whatever, like in 2 years, a top 3 babyface, but I don't rule it out either. But this is a match that shows he can hold a roughly 20-minute segment as a guy who has been mostly a tag wrestler, hasn't had a lot of mic time. I think he's been good, not great on the microphone. I don't think he has like this distinct voice where people who like his in-ring style have a super clear sense of who he is, but that's a work in progress because he's playing off of Speedball a little bit when he does get mic time. But when he has had a solo mic, he's been good, So now it's just, this is it builds a foundation for maybe something more down the line. Otherwise, just be in a tag team for a while longer or whatever. Go after a singles title at some point. Kind of like Brody King after Brodito. Now he's going after, secondary singles titles after a shot at the world title. So Knight can follow that same path.
Yeah, it's been a really good few months for both those guys, he and Speedball. I mean, in the Continental Classic, they had good stuff, and they're not fully developed interviews and characters and things of that nature, but they've come quite a long way, and you at least have a little better idea about what they're about. And they're certainly, they were really thrilled to be trios champions, which is going to make this losing it tonight kind of add a little more to the main event of the pay-per-view. So, it was a good night for him, and it's been a good 2026, into 2025 for both those guys. So yeah, obviously, you can lose the world champion. We've talked about that before, and there's no shame in that. So it was a step forward for everybody involved, I thought.
Absolutely. And then we had the post-match Hangman Page coming out, eyeing him as MJF was thinking of punching him with the Dynamite Diamond ring. Then Speedball showed up behind MJF, delivered a karate sidekick to his chin. And Speedball checked on Knight, and that set up some stuff later on. So good. They hit on the idea. Hey, there's a bigger challenger coming up for MJF. MJF's a heel because he's going to take a cheap shot. Hangman was there for his friend, so was Speedball. Just like in the best way possible, paint by numbers, structurally solid stuff. And it is real different from what Roman Reigns and CM Punk did on Monday, or what we're about to see with Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill, where it's all about social media. Are they shooting or aren't they? It started as a work, but now it's actually a real shoot. But is it, or is it filmed for WWE Unreal? All that stuff. And like, as I talked about on Monday, there is legit like shoot heat with Jade and Rhea, but there's orchestration and embellishment, and maybe something starts as a work and then gets a little personal and someone's feelings generally are hurt. But none of that's going on here. And this is just what I like about this show, and just this match as an example of it, is we just believe in pro wrestling. Like that's my contention with so many bookers over the last 25 years, 30 years, is just believe in pro wrestling. Stop trying to reinvent it. Stop trying to play games with the internet has changed everything, or social media has changed everything, or all these books going back further changed everything, or podcasts change everything. So now we can't just believe in the pro wrestling narrative. It's like this just believed in the pro wrestling narrative. A punk-ass heel, up and coming athletic babyface, and then a higher up babyface who you love standing up for him, being a good guy. Like, and go tell a good story in the ring. And they did that. And it's just like, I just like the purity of it. I'm refreshed by it. And I mean, I find Roman and Punk compelling. I wrote about it in the VIP exclusive Wade Keller News Bulletin yesterday. And gave my take on it, and went into kind of the nuance of the pros and cons of it. That's in podcast format too for VIP members, but also PDF and written format. There's things I find compelling about it, but it's not my favorite thing. I believe in this, Dan.
Yeah. I mean, it was one thing in 1995 in ECW when you kind of wondered about that stuff because it wasn't done. But I've seen it for 30 years now. I've pretty well had my fill of it for the most part, with rare exceptions. So yeah, this is within the pro wrestling structure, and everybody, again, it's harder to do that, right? Because you have to have people that are well-developed characters within that framework, and AEW's done a good job with that. And they have, again, you see guys that are still forming, like Kevin Knight, like Speedball to some degree, but you get a general sense of their purpose and what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, and that they're fairly earnest baby faces. And so again, that's a lot, and you can get really good stuff from pro wrestling. I mean, that's what we've been watching for a long time, and some of us keep coming back to it.
Some of the worst refrigerators, I'll just use an appliance analogy, have all the gimmicks. The screen, there's a door that you open, but it's not the full door to get your beverages. Whatever. They're all kind of little gimmickry things. And it's like, just get like a basic, I love my Bosch fridge. I hated my LG fridge. Just get a fridge that looks simple, well built, keeps the food cool because it's got two whatchamacallits in it instead of one, where the freezer makes stuff in the fridge cold and there's all this temperature variance. Put the money into the foundational solid stuff. I love my Bosch fridge. It costs a little extra. My vegetables stay fresh for an extra 3 weeks. It's crazy. I can gush about it to people and they're like, settle down. It's just a refrigerator. You didn't have to live, sorry, LG, but you didn't have to live through the LG lemon that I got and the GE lemon before that. So this, stop with the gimmickry. We don't need the window. We don't need the screen and the iPad on the front. Just build a rock solid, believe in the structure of the core element. You had two good wrestlers in there with different styles, different personalities doing their thing. Logical follow-up. All right. Got to sneak in my appliance analogy instead of a food analogy.
I may be in the market for a refrigerator pretty soon.
Bosch all the way.
Okay.
And it's the best looking, but it's I did research. It's I'm so happy with it. All right. It's been a couple years, so it's stood the test of time. All right. Let's pause and introduce ourselves here and then march through the show. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling post show following the Wednesday, March 4th episode of AEW Dynamite. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor and publisher and founder of the long-running Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter. Hot off the presses, issue number 1959. Here it is. Headline, Ripley Norton winning the Chamber. Got our VIP exclusive roundtable reviews. Rich Fan in the lead. So anyway, Greg, what did Greg Parks write about this week in his page 10 column? He anchors page 10. Oh, where did WWE roster cuts from a year ago? How did they turn out compared to his predictions? Full page column there. Lots of good stuff in that newsletter. I mentioned the Wade Keller News Bulletin also, which is for VIP members, a digital PDF, all text copy, or I read it as a podcast. So 3 formats. I always try to throw in some insider news, some insight. I've got more to deliver now in my next one after communicating with people in wrestling today about some hot topics. So go VIP and don't miss out on the full array of what I do and what my whole team does during the week. Information on that is at pwtorch.com/govip. pwtorch.com/govip. You can sign up through Patreon, which then links with Spotify. You can sign up with your Apple account through the Apple Podcast app to get our podcast. You can get a full VIP membership with an ad-free website, access to decades of archives of retro radio shows, podcasts, and newsletters. So much more. pwtorch.com/govip. I also host a variety of podcasts, VIP podcast, as I mentioned, the Wade Keller News Bulletin podcast, Wade Keller Hotlines, The Fix with Todd Martin, Everything with Rich and Wade, post pay-per-view and PLE roundtables, and we have a whole array of other cool VIP exclusive podcasts. And I also oversee pwtorch.com. Jeff Rush is back. He was a contributor off and on over the years, and it's great to have him back. He wrote 2 really thorough, great articles this week on women's wrestling. A preview of if you're a fan of women's wrestling, a preview of everything that's on TV and available during the week, just a schedule to kind of plan your week around, and then also a review of everything that happened last week, and from the WWE to TNA to ROH across the board. Really, really nice article from Jeff. I just want to give a shout out to him. There's so many reasons to make PWTorch part. Once you're done with the SEO, AI written, like dopamine rush, gossipy headlines that, half are true and exciting and half turn out to be a bunch of BS and clickbait, settle into PWTorch for a few minutes and read some good writing from some really talented writers. It's adult level coverage of wrestling, not just, what the 14-year-olds, and I was 14 once, want to read. And learn more about wrestling and get excited about it with people who are passionate about it. It's a great team, pwtorch.com. Speaking of which, my co-host today on the Dynamite Post Show is Dan Kuester. He helps cover New Japan for PWTorch and is part of podcasts and our written reports on the website. Dan is also a frequent co-host here on the Dynamite Post Show when we can get him, and it's great that it worked out this week. Dan, welcome.
Oh, thanks, Wade. Yeah, I was excited to do it tonight. I'm a huge college basketball guy, and so these next few weeks we're either going to be traveling to watch college basketball for March Madness in Vegas or wrapped into conference tournaments and things of that nature. And just then I've got with my real job, I've got some travel upcoming with students, and really, really pleased to be able to do that. I'm going to take them out to a conference to present, and then also to DC in a few weeks. So I definitely, when you asked, I was pleased because I'm pretty booked for a while, but certainly take the time to watch the AEW stuff, and do appreciate everything at the Torch. With my job, I teach economics, and what you were saying rang a bell with me yesterday. I was talking to students about Daniel Kahneman and thinking fast and slow and type 1 and type 2 thinking, and how often we kind of fall into the trap of reflexive thinking type 1 and not reflective thinking type 2. And there's so much slop out there in every genre now that's just what you said, the dopamine rush, and it's not very it's not something you can really sit and pontificate about or kind of really focus on and get much depth to it. And so the fact that that's out there, and it's out there with your publication with the tremendous contributors is just really great. And I'm not what's the word? I'm not compensated for saying that. I'm
not texting you words.
Yeah, that's right. I appreciate the opportunity and do my little bit to chip in.
Sometimes when I ask, when can you do it? It's like, well, maybe 6 weeks from now. And I just, mark it down and I check in that week and then we do it. Yeah. But it's great to have you.
And Wade, I assume you're watching Survivor.
I am.
That's
I didn't
a
watch
bit,
tonight's. Or
no,
wait,
I know.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
please don't spoil it for me if you're
Yeah,
on
I'm
the chat.
scared
I
you brought
really,
it up.
I really would if you
Yeah.
dislike me, that'd be a way to get me, but I'd be upset. But you know, and I think they're back to 2 hours this week. 3 hours. That reminded me of wrestling last week. I'm like, 3 hours is too much.
I watched it in three segments. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
I watched it in one because my buddy had already seen it, and I watched it the next day. But I was like, this is a grind. But I think they're going to 2 hours starting tonight. So that's related to wrestling too. The first time it's 3 hours, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's kind of cool, but let's not make a habit of this.
Yeah, very much. All right. Zach Barber says, nice analogy, Wade, about the refrigerator. Pickens says, my GE fridge with a broken ice maker was listening with its Wi-Fi mic and speaker and said its feelings were hurt. The great thing about the Bosch fridge is there's no ice maker, like I read about. It's like it's terribly trying on the motor to have to heat like ice in an ice maker. It's the number one thing that breaks down. It costs you a ton of money. So I've got like this big bin of ice in the Bosch freezer bin, and I got that scooper, and it's just always there, and I don't have to sit and wait for it to churn and worry about it breaking. So
my ice machine has been off for years. I just flipped the thing and went and bought trays and did it that way.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't want to go on about my Bosch fridge, but people who know me know I can. It's been a while. When I first got it, I was like, I'm so excited about this. I think I finally got a good fridge. And then, man, that lettuce stays fresh for a long time. It's so nice. All right. GWF ESPN. Jason Paul was with me on the flagship yesterday, by the way. That is by the way, if you're watching us on YouTube, the blue logo show is podcast only. This is our red logo show, our post shows. You can watch them live on YouTube and then download them after the fact as a podcast on our free podcast feed. And of course, as always, VIP members get it on the VIP feed, which is separate without commercials. That's one of the perks of being VIP. The Blue Logo Show with Jason Paul yesterday is available. Search Wade Keller in your podcast app to subscribe to that. While you're at it, subscribe to the Red Logo Show because there's stuff on the podcast feed that is not on YouTube. And then also while you're at it, subscribe to the PWTorch Daily Cast so you can get a different show each day of the week, including, by the way, the All Elite Conversation Club with Greg and Joel giving their take. You can hear Greg rant about me sometimes. He's just like, Greg's like, I have a love-hate relationship with the Wade Keller post show, and he's like, why is Wade so hard on shows that he thinks are better? So it's a very good mix of opinions on AEW, but another dose of it. But that is podcast only for free on the PWTorch Daily Cast feed. All right, that said, GWF ESPN says about yesterday's show with Jason, I enjoyed the flagship with Jason today. Your idea about Danhausen having an LA Knight voodoo doll in confessing that he caused all of his botches these last couple of years had me dying. Go VIP. Yeah, thank you, GWF ESPN for noting that and also just for listening. Appreciate it. So yeah, Jason's always blessed, and we talked for 2.5 hours. About half hour of that was VIP exclusive in the VIP after show, but a lot of good topics covered there, including more insight into that Rhea Jade Cargill stuff, which I'll even have more on this week for VIP members. And obviously CM Punk and Roman Reigns, we talked about that. And AEW topics and some TNA too. And some emails. All right. So, Dan, let's get back to the show. We'll continue to incorporate chat comments. So stay in the chat if you're watching us live and give us feedback. We will be looking for that. You can also email us, Wade Keller Post Show at gmail.com. It's the best way to reach us for the post show if you want to email us instead of in the chat, especially if you can't watch us live. And there is a link to be a caller in my TV report at the aforementioned pwtorch.com. So click on that link and you'll go in the waiting room, and we invite you to join us on camera or just audio only. You can turn your camera off. Okay, so Dan, we moved to, we have a super chat. I want to honor prioritizing that when they happen. Zach Barber, thank you for the super chat. Says, I felt compelled to send money to celebrate the fact that the Brawling Birds smoked the useless inspiration faster than Snoop Dogg smokes a blunt. Dan, you are giving a thumbs up to our YouTube viewers. I was surprised, but not upset. One, I'm a squash match fan, and two, that might be the right use of them. You don't want to look like you're marking out for everybody who maybe wrestled somewhere else and has a name. Dan, tell me why you're nodding and giving.
I mean, I had written down, I was like, this better be a squash, like before the match, and I didn't think it would be either. But I'm like, at some point you're trying to. Oh, thank you. I said in the chat. Sorry. At some point, yeah. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Type 1 versus type 2 thinking, folks. It's a good way to think about your life. But, at some point you need to differentiate. If you're saying you're pro wrestling, this is where the best wrestling, all this stuff, and you've got an act that was not particularly known for its great matches, and you bring them in against women that you're building up as badasses, that to me was the only way it should have gone. And boy, they went all in with it. And I'd probably pay those women to get squashed every few weeks for the next year. Honestly, I don't know if there's much else to them. If they come around and become better wrestlers, then okay. But I wouldn't tell that story if they don't. I'd be like, okay, here's where you are, and we're going to bring you in. They sign them to a contract, but the world needs ditch diggers too. And if their job is to lose all the time, I'd say have fun with it. I have no problem with that. And I thought it was a really good way to, you can't focus on everybody, and they've done a good job of focusing on the Brawling Birds there. And it was a good way to build them. It did surprise people. I'm sure I wanted to see it, but it surprised me a little bit.
Yeah. What do you think of the Brawling Birds as in terms of how they're portraying themselves? Like there's been some mixed thoughts on their promo last week and just kind of the gimmick and the name. It's a little bit unfamiliar terminology in the United States. So just kind of talk about their presentation and what they're doing with that. So
I'd have to look back at the interview from last week to get your critique, Wade. To be honest, I don't recall.
There was more others critiquing, but I hadn't stated my opinion, but others have written about it on the Torch site, I know, and in the chat.
Okay, I it's not jumping out at me, just to be honest, but it's a British focus, and it's focused on no nonsense to me, unless I'm missing something big that's out there that's over my head. I mean, it's kind of these, again, kind of badass women that go out and really take care of business and aren't there to mess around. And they're pretty, focused on winning those titles and being strong and to the point. So I like the presentation. I don't think everything has to be American centric. And I think there's a little bit of the references that are British. And again, I may be missing something deeper that others have picked up on, but I, what I've seen, I like, and I've seen a few of their skits and interviews on Collision or this, that, and the other. And I've always thought they were fairly good. I mean, it's a pretty consistent portrayal as far as I can tell.
Yep. Very good. So after, the opening match, I said we're going to kind of march through the show chronologically since nothing jumps out as needing to be covered first. Let's go to Orange Cassidy and Darby against War Ready Gabe Kidd and Clark Connors. If you're War Ready Gabe, there's a world that could use you right now, unfortunately. I know some people in the chat, and I'm not going to bring people down by dwelling on this at all, because it would be ironic given what people have said in the chat. But they said they're thankful for this escape. Like GWF ESPN said, really fun Dynamite. The terrible news cycle has been frying my brain, and this is great escapism and fun start to finish. He wasn't the only one in the chat who mentioned that too. So anyway, I mean, that's what you want, pro wrestling to be is try to stay out of current events. I don't want to discourage them I don't want them to run away from things that maybe you want to comment on, but it is nice to just have a show that just is happy being a pro wrestling show, and doesn't feel like it's got to, whatever, pull people in different directions. By the way, because I might forget to say this otherwise, I didn't hear an F-Ice chant for Brody King in El Paso, which surprised me. I thought the streak would continue. I didn't think El Paso would. Did you notice one, Dan?
No, I didn't, but it wasn't. It was going to be tough to do it when he's getting choked out by Swerve. Like, I'm not saying.
I thought at the beginning, though.
Yeah, they could have
promo or when he came out. Yeah,
that would have been the time. But again, at some point, maybe he's in a serious program, so you want to focus on that if you're the fans. I think it was more the way that it was presented than obviously. I think the fans would have been willing to do that if they would have had a really open opportunity to do so. Now, Wade, when I look at Gabe Kidd and Connors and now David Finlay, which was interesting and really surprising to me, I look at that differently. And again, I could be oblivious to things, but to me, it's distracting. They're not called the War Dogs. So when they throw War in there, but they're the dogs, but he's War ready. I didn't look at it at all about current events. I just looked at it as like,
I didn't think it was either. I just am saying it's just in my mind, it triggered me going, oh wait, that's people commenting on. It's just nice to have an escape. And when I saw War Ready, I mentioned this in my TV report. Like, I'm sure that can be accommodated if you're ready to take up arms.
I mean, I just think that probably it wouldn't have dawned on me, and maybe that's being insensitive or whatever. But because to me it's distracting. They're not called the War Dogs.
Yeah,
and so I'm like, why? And I don't think New Japan would care. I don't know why they don't just call them the War Dogs, but it's kind of a minor quibble. I was glad to see Finlay come in, and I wasn't really happy with how they lost that match, kind of decisively. But then when Finlay joined them and they're getting their revenge, it's like, okay, well, this resets everything, and it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, they haven't done a ton to establish. I mean, they're catching up, but it's been catch up in terms of establishing like Clark Connors and Gabe Kidd. AEW does that a lot. They do this sort of I don't know if it's deductive introductions instead of inductive introductions. I don't know. Now I'm thinking of induction stoves by Bosch. No, I'm kidding. And like they'll introduce people, and for all the people who know who they are and they pop, and then it takes a few weeks for them to go, oh, we ought to kind of give a backstory, talk about who they are. And as usual, Excalibur with Finlay's introduction here and debut, Excalibur had to do a little bit of explanation, but he didn't even do much. I mean, it just goes, he's been affiliated with Connors and Gabe in New Japan, but there wasn't much to it. But even Clark Connors, they haven't done a ton. Gabe Kidd was sort of hanging out with the Death Riders, and now they're their own group. I don't know. I'm not.
No, I don't like the lack of focus that they put on Gabe and any of those guys. That really, I mean, it's too early to tell with Finlay, obviously, but I'm not super hopeful. Just, I mean, they treat him like a pretty big deal tonight, so we'll see. But I don't know how you go about doing this because it's not a charity case or whatever, but they let Kuester wrestle in New Japan and stuff. And it's like, if you want to sign those guys and sign them to long-term deals, maybe you let them work for New Japan for another year until you're really ready to use them. Let them be a fairly big deal in New Japan. And I'm not saying treat it like developmental, but you're signing these guys kind of because you want to, and they're really good, but you don't really have a place for them. Like, they're great in New Japan. Like, would it be so bad if you said, okay, we're going to pay half their salary, and that way you could keep them in New Japan for an extra 2 years, but then we have the rights. We're signing a 5-year deal. They're going to be with you for 2 years or something. Like, Tony's certainly not unwilling to be creative and try to help people out. And I just wonder if there's a way that couldn't be more of a win-win rather than, I feel like they're too much of an afterthought right now in AEW, although this thing tonight, they're building for something. So we'll see.
Yeah, Derek Mitchell with similar sentiments. Says David Finlay debuts in AEW. Regardless of his talent, there's a thing of having too much talent. There are at least 150 performers signed. There's only so much time between AEW and ROH television. And my argument is just make it count. So hopefully now that Finlay showed up, they will, if they're going to be part of television regularly and pay-per-views, like, let's figure out who they are, or let's present.
This is the time. The iron's hot, right?
How do we want AEW fans to feel about them? I mean, I'm very big on that. Like, you don't just leave it to the fans to read on social media who these wrestlers are and what they're all about, or to be, watching on New Japan World or reading about them. Like, your job is to take the aspects of all of their past and go, what makes them fit in and earn TV time in AEW? And ultimately, what emotion do we want fans to feel when they see them? And you should guide them in that direction. Like, it's okay to steer people towards some, authentic traits that you want to amplify and focus on when it comes to them, and not just lean on body language during a ring entrance or the music or what somebody says in a little soundbite promo. You want to have a consistent concert of voices in on announcing, production, how opponents talk about them, how they talk about themselves. It says this is who they are, and this is why you should be hoping they win or hoping they fail in their quest to achieve victories and titles. Tap into our emotions, like, make us feel something. And instead it's like, oh, plug and play, talented wrestlers with New Japan pedigree. We got nothing more to do because, the people in the first 5 rows are popping and the internet's going, yay. That's that's fine. You want to hire people who pop social media from smart fans, but you have to do more. And I would say, I mean, and that I'm not alone in saying this. I think Gabe Kidd, and especially Clark Connors, once he arrived, they deserved more framing by AEW.
Well, and I thought at first, I still thought Gabe was going to be more New Japan. And I guess not, apparently. I mean, they said now they're signed with AEW. They put the logo out, I think, tonight about all three of them. And it's like, Gabe was so hot after the Kenny Omega match. Tanahashi loves him. It's like, I just feel like there's somewhere we dropped the ball here. And I don't know if that's Gato or what, but it's just like, and if you're playing the long game, let him be a star somewhere. And ROH doesn't really count. I'm sorry. So New Japan, and then bring him in on top. I mean, you've got talent. I mean, eventually we're going to see Jay White again. I mean, there's plenty of amazing New Japan guys that are in line, and I think the chatter might be right. There might just be a little too much, but I will say I think it could go somewhere. I was very intrigued with Toni Storm and Orange. Apparently, you never know when Toni Storm's involved what's going to happen, but she's calling them out, and they're mad, and so I'm not without hope, but I'm just hopeful that this would be a real squandering of opportunity. Again, I put Gabe right up there at the top too, to not take advantage of that. Now Finley could be really strong as well, and everybody thought he was going to WWE, so it's interesting to me that he showed up in AEW, and I was pleased by it. And you're muted, Gabe. Or Wade.
Earlier, I mentioned Tony Schiavone with a comment that I thought undercut MJF's attempt to get heel heat. I want to call out Excalibur and Schiavone a little bit for a move where Gabe shoved Darby over the top rope, and Darby took, and I've watched wrestling for like a long time, one of the worst bumps onto his head on the ring apron I've ever seen. No, it's Darby. He's likely fine. He was fine, but it was like he looked like out of control, landed on his head, the side of his head, his neck crimped over on the hardest part of the ring, as we often hear, and then fell to the ground and held his neck. And Excalibur didn't draw attention to it. They replayed it. Excalibur and Schiavone just kept talking about what they were doing. There was no sense that maybe something happened that should get a little more attention, and it just undercut what. I mean, I don't know if Darby intended to take a bump that hard and he's proud of it, or it was an accident. But when someone lands like that, your job as an announcer is to stop everything that was on your mind to say and go, oh my God, is he okay? And please don't laugh. Excalibur laughs too often. After big moves. He did it in this match too. And I know.
I thought they should have stopped the match.
I know.
Whether he's hurt or not.
Yep.
Like, that is, it's Darby, but I'm just like, did I just see what I thought I did? And again, then you're like, well, they're not really drawing attention to it. If they showed it, I'm just like, again, talk about something that takes you out of the moment.
Yep.
To me, that was it for the whole night. I was like, oh man, I don't like to see that at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know staring at a monitor, having scripts to read and trying to fit stuff in, it's a challenge, but you have to be ready to, like, when a bump like that happens, you got to stop and gasp and just be like, oh God, I hope he's okay. Because it just, otherwise you're just taking it for granted, going like it's no big deal, or you're not paying attention. So anyway,
you wonder if Danielson would have been on the call if they might have shaped that up a little bit, because I don't think he would have let it go. Yeah,
I would hope not. Anything else on this match?
No, again, I was displeased with it until Finley showed up. Then I'm like, okay, I'll give it a chance to see where it goes.
Standard Deviation in the chat says, one day something will happen to Darby and nobody will notice because it's Darby. But that was a scary bump. Absolutely agree with that. All right. Let's move on then to Renee Paquette interviewing Bandito and Andrade. Bandito is fanboying standing out for Andrade. It's so exciting to face you at Revolution. And Andrade goes, I can't tell if you want to fight or a selfie. Just talks down to him. And then he pulls out his phone like he's going to take a selfie. And he goes, oh, excuse me, I got a call. And he walks away. I thought that was kind of fun. I mean, it did make Andrade out to be a smug jerk and Bandito out to be a bit of a fanboy. So there's some negatives to Bandito. But, I mean, I think ultimately Bandito's acting that way towards Andrade makes Andrade seem like more of a star than it makes Bandito feel like, an amateur. Now you can argue Bandito's been has had enough success in AEW and ROH that maybe fawning over him that much was a little, should be safe for a rookie who doesn't have his resume. But I was okay with it, and I thought it was a nice move to set up the dynamic in the match.
Another thing I liked, Wade, is nothing ridiculous happened in a backstage segment.
Yep.
It was just a backstage. We talked about that with the last one where they went from Hangman to Andrade to all this. It was quick. Andrade made a smart-ass comment.
Look at that. It's a refrigerator. It's symmetrical. It's clean. It's sleek, and there's no gimmicks. That's my refrigerator, and it's wonderful. And what you're talking about is wonderful. You don't need to overdo it.
Yeah.
Like, just do a backstage segment and tell one simple story without contrivances.
And again, I put, there's a little bit of both, but I put it more endearing for Bandito than he's done enough competing at the highest levels where it's okay to say, hey, I've been at this a long time and you inspired me. Like, people used to say that to Ric Flair and of course Flair did a better job of turning it against him. Like, how dare you insinuate something you weren't insinuating? But I like the arrogant approach too, so I thought they both handled it well.
Yep. All right, the Brawling Birds and the inspiration, we already talked about it, but that is next up. But Zach Barber moved it ahead in line with the super chat. I think we talked sufficiently about it. I thought the squash made the Brawling Birds gained more from their 2-minute squash win, essentially a squash. I mean, Hangman was really a squash coming up next. But the decisive quick win felt unexpected because they treated Inspiration's arrival like it was something.
Mm-hmm.
They had a ring entrance. They had a soundbite during their ring
interviews.
entrance. Yeah, and so you're like, ooh, this is a new team. And the Brawling Birds, a relatively new team, just plow through them. And you're like, oh, okay. So, the Inspiration can be more, I don't know, dare I say Chelsea Green-esque, just kind of there for laughs or whatever, but they're not going to be there. Or how Grayson Waller has been treated, a big mouth, but you just enjoy seeing him get beat up, that kind of thing. I assume that's kind of where they're headed with them if they are regulars on AEW TV going forward.
Yeah, and again, those women, like when the Inspiration was doing the little ring entrance, I mean, you could see the disdain on their faces and just how they were like chomping at the bit to tear them apart, and then they did. So, yeah, I really liked it. I was very pleasantly surprised.
Zach Barber notes the ring entrance was literally the exact same as it was.
Well, why wouldn't it
WWE.
be? I mean, that's what they're there for. I'm sorry, but people might be like, "Oh, I remember that." Okay, good.
Yeah. So we had Hangman against an unnamed opponent. Just
they named
action.
him. They gave him a name. I think
Yeah, my point is leading into the show on social media.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say it's Hangman in action. It's like, okay, Hangman in action means 1, he's going to come out and there's no opponent, there's an angle, or 2, it's a jobber, and it was option 2. We got a match, went 10 seconds. What I love, and Dan, this from 80s wrestling, the jobber introductions are one of the funnest parts about professional wrestling that today's fans don't get to experience, which is the delusionally overconfident jobber. You get introduced, like I grew up watching AEW squash matches, like Tom Rocky Stone would get introduced, and he just had like this demeanor of, hey, like, I know I'm going to get beat up again. But then you'd get other people who are just like, I'm excited. This is going to be my night. I'm going to finally win. And then they get, just squashed. The Road Warriors just plow through them or something like that. And so Marty actually kind of looked sort of confident. He got introduced. Yeah. He's like, look, Ma, I'm on TV. Yeah. And it was just great. And then he didn't look like some schlub. I mean, he just looked like a good athlete. Yeah. I mean, you could imagine him getting a push someday and having a good look. But he's not at that stage yet. And this will be his, hey, I mean, how many wrestlers... the Hardys were jobbers at one point and, whatever. So, so many people started off just waving at the crowd and getting squashed. So I like this. It changes the cadence, and it's a good excuse to have Hangman out there to then cut a promo afterwards. So, yeah, what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, just to go back to what you were saying. I mean, it was always fun because you have like the Mulkeys who would be like completely hopeless. And then some of the jobbers would have confidence. And it was always kind of fun to compare different shows. Some shows had more confident jobbers than others. Usually Mid-South, they at least kind of UWF, they'd kind of show up, they'd kind of act like they thought they had a chance and things of that nature. And then of course eventually on UWF occasionally they'd have the jobbers wrestle each other, which I always thought was really cool because I'm like, oh, which one of these guys is going to win? But, Gary Young and Perry Jackson or something would be wrestling, and you'd wonder. But no, I liked the squash match. I thought it was a good. Hangman got right to the buckshot and put him away, and that's the crowd wants to see, and it set him up to badmouth MJF. So all good.
I was thinking, the Rooster Griffin in the AWA was a jobber. The future Nails, Kevin Wackel's he wrestled as Kevin Kelly. He had he was a thin frame, but he had kind of the muscular body during that 80s era, and he would always flex, but he got beat up by the Road Warriors every week.
I always remember when I really first started watching Georgia, I was like, and World Class too, I would be like, Chick Donovan, like he looks like an imitation Ric Flair. Why does he lose all the time?
Yep. You have the job. I remember telling George Wells after a WWF house show. This was when I was 13, 14. And I'd wait outside the Met Sports Center after the WWF shows were over, and you could hang out. Wrestlers would leave the building, but there was no barriers. Maybe a security guy, maybe not. And they'd walk to their car in the parking lot. And it was just a cool thing to just get to be up close with the wrestlers, ask for autographs and stuff. I remember just patting George Wells on the shoulder going, you should get a push. You should get more TV time. I was already critiquing, he was my pick as a young teenager. As
was this before or after Bill Watts tried to go with him?
Ooh, good question.
Probably after, because that would have been late '84 when Junkyard Dog left.
Good question. It's super
You're the
close
same
enough.
Age I am, so yeah.
It
seems like he went to WWF. He was there before and after, so it could be either. That's
the thing. Yeah,
but I'm thinking it'd be after because they didn't run in Minneapolis till about June, July '84, and he was pretty quickly after that getting the push. So yeah.
And he looked to me as a kid. I'm like
he looked good.
Yeah, why don't you push this guy? And they just had so much talent. WWF had so much talent from the territories at that point. They couldn't push everybody. Iron Mike Sharp was one of the favorites. Yep. He was just sort of this awkward, guy.
He had a gimmick too. He had the gimmick, so you'd be like, this guy has to be something. He's got his forearm bad.
I'm surprised I didn't think of this back when Lars Sullivan was getting a push, because Lars Sullivan had an aspect of him. He was kind of half Iron Mike Sharp and then half like Ole Anderson or something. It was like a blend of those two, but just kind of a weird horror movie. He'd answer the door and the kids would run on Halloween or something. So he was a guy you had a little hope for. But then there were people who just always got beat up. So Derek Mitchell, of course, Derek, you're going to chime in on this, is Marty Lundy, future Arn Anderson, Rick Rude with two O's in the middle before he became Rick Rude, Rude, and Shawn Michaels were jobbing in Mid-South. And I don't think he spelled his name like you did. His first name, Derek. I think he was always SHAWN.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Really? Maybe that was intentional.
With the Chyron in Mid-South, you never know. They can change it too.
Yep.
So he had a match with Ted DiBiase that was you could see Ted saw something in him really early on. So yeah.
I'm thinking about the people who did jobs and then got pushes. But anyway, fun stuff. Bring jobbers back. Just sprinkle them in.
This guy may make it. He looked pretty good. He lost in 15 seconds. You could put a mask on him, but I don't even think you had to. Big Bubba Rogers, Ray Traylor showed up in Atlanta, and he did a job for Tully Blanchard, and they said, oh, well, let's repackage this guy, So, yeah.
Yeah. Another guy, Mikey Whipwreck, was, in ECW, a play on jobbers. He was the hapless upstart, but he was scrappy and eventually, kind of got a push. But part of just take good bumps, just take good bumps and be somebody that people look forward to hanging out with, at backstage. And then maybe you can turn into the next Arn Anderson or Rick Rude or Shawn Michaels. All right. So let's see. There was
I got a sidetrack. Sorry.
Oh no, I started it. Italian Stallion in WCW. Zach Barber brings up. Yeah. Yep. Oh, okay. More names. Tom Stone, Dusty Wolf, in the Mulkeys. Yeah, Dusty Wolf too. Yeah, that's fun. All right. So we have Hangman Page beating Marty Snow, and then afterwards, he spoke about MJF. He said he has no conscience in a Texas death match, and he vowed to rip you, tear you, and only let you lie when I'm finished with you. Did he mean I'll let you die when I finish with you, or lie? At first, I had to rewind, and closed captioning thought he said lie. But I was like, I'm not even going to let you die until I'm finished with you, which would be more Hangman-esque to say, I'm going to kill you, but I'm going to rip you and tear you. Hangman just can't help but just go into that stuff. This wasn't too bad. And then he said MJF looked like he was itching to punch someone with the diamond ring, so come on out. Get your dumb ass out here. And then MJF did walk out, but then it led to Fletcher, Davis, and Okada attacking Hangman to then set up the impromptu trios title match. At first, I thought, how would MJF, because MJF was smiling when that happened. I'm like, how would MJF know that Hangman was going to call him out and MJF would be a distraction, so Hangman's back would be turned? And then I thought, in this case, I think I'm overthinking it because MJF's happy that happened because it's Hangman, it's his opponent, but he didn't have to be in on it to laugh at it. This is just the Callis family going, let's try to get a trios title match. They said anytime, anywhere. Let's call him on it. Let's do it. And so let's attack him from behind. And MJF just happened to be eyewitness to it. And that was, I thought, again, a good natural flow setup for the main event. It felt like it could happen the way it happened, Dan.
Yeah, and at first I was like, is this beneath, and I guess you could say Fletcher too, but I'm like, is this beneath Okada to be doing MJF's dirty work? But that really wasn't what it was, as you said. I mean, they had a plan, and they wanted to get their trios title, and more pro-Okada, positive momentum there, and that whole thing with the Cassidy's going on. So, again, at first I questioned it. Then when you let it play out, you're like, okay, I see it. And we're muted again.
I know I wasn't a couple weeks ago. There's a big thing on the screen that flashes at me, and as I talk, it senses I'm talking to the mic, and then it flashes you're mic'd. So I'll catch it within 2 seconds almost every time, unless I'm looking off at and reading something. So sorry, everybody. I had a streak going where I wasn't doing that. Now I'm doing it again. So one man's voice, it says, Wade, did you just say you're overthinking it? I think that's a loaded comment. You can never be self-deprecating in life because people just, you don't know how many people are waiting around just to seize the opportunity and just jump all over you when you dare to be self-deprecating about something.
Wait, it's my best teaching technique. I can't get away from it. It's like, it's about this. Sometimes it's the only way I can get a laugh. So I don't care. I'm beyond ego at this point in my career.
Yep. Standard deviation goes, ha ha ha. Yes. All right. So we'll move on to hour two. A sit-down interview with Renee at a table with the Young Bucks with Brandon Cutler making his return with his dark black beard now and bald head. Maybe I just didn't notice before if that was the case. He hasn't been on TV much. But anyway, FTR and Stokely Hathaway were a little bit late. They wheeled in Stokely, sat down. I thought this was good. The angle with the Jackson's family, they needed to revisit that because there's something about last week's Mayhem match, Mile High Mayhem, it was a fun fight. Oh, and by the way, I want to say while I'm thinking of this exact thing, I wanted to compliment Darby and Cassidy for jumping Gabe and Connor on the stage and not waiting in the ring because Gabe Kidd and Connor dragged Darby to the desert and left him for dead. And you don't just wait for ring introductions and wait for the bell and do a collar and elbow hookup. It made sense that they would just jump them and brawl for a few minutes before the match started. So I'm glad that they did revisit the family. I think Nick and Matt need to speak up for their mom and dad. And I got a kick out of, was it Cash who said it was self-defense or something like that? And so, you want to revisit that. They had the no contact agreement, but it did not apply to Brandon Cutler, so they punched him. I thought it was good. It didn't overstay its welcome, but it hit points that I think were good to hit.
Yeah, it was very straightforward. Sometimes serious Young Bucks fall a little short. They don't always convey things, and I thought that Matt did a good job of getting that across that this was not what you're due to his brother, and that they were upset. Yeah, as standard deviation says, they don't always do the most serious promos. So I thought this was good. It all added up. It made sense. They had the right tone, and you believe they were upset, and you also believe that these guys are the two best tag teams of the 21st century, and that they're trying to prove one's better than the other. So the stakes are high, and I'm excited about this as much as anything on the card.
Standard Deviation says, was this the Young Bucks' most serious promo in 7 years? I don't think there's. I mean, there probably been a handful that are like this, but it's infrequent.
Some of the stuff they did about with Sting, I would say that was heelish was pretty good.
Yeah.
Not all of it, but some of it. But I'd have to think back. Maybe some of the stuff building up the Lucha Brothers match was was not angry, but serious, in a more sportsman type way. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like this, the standing up for your mom from Nick, just, and it was Cash who called it self-defense, which was, you can see they're making the case for it because it did get a little physical with the dad, but yeah. All right. And Matt's line was, it's taking everything in our souls not to kick the shit out of you right now. And it's like, hey, Matt can be serious and believably so. So that was good. All right. So then we had the obligatory 15-minute to 20-minute John Moxley banger with somebody who fights a different style than him, Hechicero in this case. They brawled. They fought. It was just a good variety. It was a good variety of different styles and techniques. I'm trying to think of what stood out to you in this match and what you think of
it. Some of the lucha / technical wrestling stuff that Hechicero did, that where he was, rolling Moxley and trying to work his way into a pin, like the Mexican style. I thought the match was almost like educational to some of the audience in a good way. Maybe some people turn it off. I don't know. I really liked it. I like to see different styles of wrestling that are treated seriously as a sport. Hechicero, you wonder if he's really that much of a heel. He pulls the straps down, he gets serious and all that, but he needs a job. Callis has hired him, so maybe he's a heel kind of by circumstance, and I'm okay with that. I really like the match, and I like the sports-like approach of the Death Riders right now overall. I know it's not super dynamic compared to some stuff in wrestling, but it's consistent, and I like it. I really enjoy this match more than I would have expected.
It was, I think that is, and Renee pointed it out on a recent Dynamite, Moxley wants to wrestle people in different styles and force upon them his style, but also adapt and counter and study and be effective against different international styles. And I think that's good. I'd still like a reason to feel, I'd like to have a feeling about Jon Moxley besides he's tough and outspoken and can wrestle a wide array of styles and is, the workhorse of the roster. Is he a heel or a face? How are we supposed to feel about him? Hechicero is more of a baby face in the Callis group, and Moxley is still hanging out with Wheeler Yuta, who's clearly a heel. Shafir is acting like a heel. Daniel Garcia is just sort of a hanger-on follower type guy, and he plays that role well. But I don't know. I just want to get to the stage where we have Moxley is clearly hanging out with people you like. You're not questioning his judgment of who he hangs out with. He's fighting for a cause you believe in. You want to see him win, and he's facing mainly heels. And there's just this weird zone he's been in for a long time now. That's different than that.
See, I don't know if I agree with that. I kind of feel like that even with Yuta and stuff, the thing he was talking about, okay, I'm going to show my bald head tonight. It's this serious sports-like presentation. These guys are all out there really training together and pushing each other, and it's all about competing, and it's it's maybe.
But Wheeler was in the losing end of a heel mixed tag match, hair match. Shafir has been doing heel tactics and interfering. So the point is, what are the Death Riders? Moxley is you can say, everything about Moxley, if you isolate him, has been good. He's been mainly fighting heels, and he does so with some but he's still hanging and running with people who are absolutely acting like heels. So it was a heel promo. Wheeler, you guys are yelling hurtful things at me, and my worst day of my life is losing my hair. We're supposed to laugh at him. So the feeling is, and I think it was Taylor Haley who wrote this in PWTorch in his column today, the feeling on the Death Riders is they just are an act because they like to hang out on the road. They like to train together. They're comfortable on each other. And so they're playing the best character that they can play, but there's no coherence or cohesion within the faction. It's just they're buds. They want to hang out. They want to do their thing, but there's no actual definition of who the Death Riders are, what they stand for, other than Moxley as a leader. But it's contradictory to have him hanging out with people who are cheating and going for heel heat. That's the part that's still murky and muddy.
Okay. I again, though, it's a good heel doesn't think they're heels, right? Like they think they're in the right. I get the impression that all those characters, even you can make fun of what you just said, but they feel like they're the victims. Like they feel like they're the ones that are doing what's right and everybody else is wrong. Now, that certainly if you go back to what they did to Danielson, that's delusional, right? But I feel like there's maybe a little more consistency there than you do, I guess. That it's like, it's weird, but it kind of makes sense if you look at it from their perspective. That and I think once the Takeshita match is over,
that's the thing.
Something's going to move anyway. So they're biding time, they're treading water, but I would too. I mean, this is, they went the time limit draw. They're coming back to this, and I think that is going to be a tipping point for something to change.
Zach Barber says, to me, the Death Riders at this point are what the Bone Street crew would have been if they'd been on WWE TV, not just Backstage. One Man's Voice said, really good match. Mox making the title feel important, the way he grinds out the matches. And there's another comment here. No, that was about something previous. So anyway, So anyway, I think once we get past Takeshita, that's good. But I mean, obviously Moxley is facing the weird juxtaposition too is Moxley's hanging out with heels and hangers on, and there's been no formal transition to them being baby faces. And you're meant to laugh at and mock Wheeler. He lost to a babyface team of Tony Storm and Orange Cassidy. He was teaming with the heel. So Yuta's a heel. Garcia's a heel. Marie Shafir's been acting, doing heel attacks and stuff. But then you got Takeshita, who's like fans love, but he's part of the scummy, dumb Don Callis family because of the rivalry they're telling, inter-squad rivalry with Okada and Fletcher now. So you end up with a babyface in a heel group against another babyface in a heel group as this match that exists simply because it's going to be so good and it's worthy buying the pay-per-view to see a match go 20 plus minutes with those two. It just, I don't know, it doesn't quite fit within the lines of me feeling strongly in the way that I think sells tickets and is a peak fan experience, which is I have a reason to see somebody win or the stakes are so high it doesn't matter. It feels jumbled, but I think
I don't necessarily disagree, but it's also not. It's a main event match, but it's not a main event program, if that makes any sense. Like it's not. It's okay to me, like not everybody has to be a 0 or a 100, right? There's these shades of gray. And
that term is banned on the show, Dan.
Sorry,
people misuse it. Yep. No, I mean, I'll actually be serious with that. I was kind of joking. I said that. Tell me in different words what you mean by that.
I feel like these guys can present their motivations in a way that they could explain as somewhat consistent with everything they stand for. And there's just places they could go. Like, I think they could end up on the same team eventually. Like there's this whole Apollo Creed Rocky thing going on with these guys, and maybe they end up together. So again, now that I got called out, I'm having a hard time thinking about where I was going when I said that. But
that's what a good host does.
Yeah,
throws a coast off track with the
but I feel like that. I think every one of those characters could say, including even Danny Garcia, who's kind of confused, that might be part of his character. But like there is a consistency there. Part of it's just trying to win over Moxley and get his respect. But everything they do is not like crazy. Like you can't say, oh, I have no idea why, Danny Garcia said what he said tonight, whatever he said, I don't remember. But it's like, there's still consistency there. Claudio's reasonably consistent, and Claudio's a heel, but kind of, like not the worst heel in the world. So but again, if they were like if it's Hangman and you're wishy-washy like that, I'd be like, this is terrible. These guys kind of sometimes draws a contrast to the more clear-cut defined heels and baby faces, I guess. That would be what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I don't know where there's money and intense crowd reactions and a drive to buy tickets and attend shows to watch somebody who embodies some positive traits, hangs out with people who are consistently cheating and whining and being laughed at and mocked by fans. And
but Wade, what if this builds to Moxley ending up with Takeshita as some super team, and they had to get there? Like it's a story.
But they're not telling that story. If Moxley looked embarrassed to be around Wheeler Yuta, if Moxley had a chat with, if we could see Moxley having a chat with Marina Shafir after she interfered in a match and blindsided somebody, and the announcers were like, hey, Moxley, it seems like he's got these people he trusts, they believe in him, but he's kind of going a new direction. I mean, it can be an expository moment.
They might turn on him after he's shown them all this loyalty that maybe they didn't deserve. Like, I just feel like it can go some places that are going to be pretty compelling, and that it seems like they're treading water now, and maybe they are, but I don't think that means that the end result won't be pretty interesting. And it's been going on a long time, but
I am skeptical that it is a master plan that has been thought through as much as you are giving it credit for.
Hey, I could be treating John Moxley like Vince McMahon from 10 years ago. I could be just like trusting, oh, there must be a plan, when I could be.
And I can't rule that there isn't. I'm like, I think they just like hanging out, and Moxley just wants to have badass matches, and the other characters they didn't want to formally turn, and they are being dismissive and disregarding a core tenet of the way AEW chooses to promote pro wrestling, which throughout most of the show, which is we want fans to be emotionally invested in somebody winning or losing. And they've just been in the Blackpool Combat Club were the same way. Like, we're heels, but there was a lot.
But there's a place for them that people care about, Wade, and they are somewhat important characters, even if they're not perfect characters. And I just think, whether it's by design or not, that puts you at a point where you can step away from that and do something. Like, eventually there could be money in this breakup and these feuds between these people just because they were together for so long. Maybe it wasn't a perfect, it's not like we know where Arn Anderson always was in the Horsemen and Tully Blanchard.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not that well defined, but it's still sometimes just the continuity of keeping these guys together for this long can lead to something when it's over. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think I see more potential in it than you do, I guess.
I'm not denying there's not potential to get there. I just don't buy that that's the story that they're telling. I think they might eventually tell it when it's convenient for them to tell it. But in the meantime, I think it's just kind of a jumbled mess. Taylor Haley wrote in his top matches of the week column that we put up every Tuesday or Wednesday on pwtorch.com. John Moxley continues to put on great matches, but that's really all he's doing. I don't understand his character at the moment, and I really wish they would move him away from the Death Riders. I just don't see what he has left to prove with this group, and I feel like Moxley and Pac deserve better at this point. The Death Riders just strike me as guys who like to work together and travel together, and they're putting that over actually putting on good stories. I don't need another multi-man tag match between the Death Riders and the Don Callis family. They are boring, and it's played out at this point. It also has downgraded the rivalry between Moxley and Takeshita because they have been in the ring so much already in these multi-man tag matches. The rivalry should be super hot, and it's not because we've already seen the two of them in the ring together so much. As a fan, I am at my breaking point with the Death Riders as a whole, and I really hope that coming out of Revolution, they have a new direction. I'm not as down on Moxley as Taylor is on Moxley and Takeshita having been in the ring so much. I think that's actually the story they're telling is we're so at a stalemate. It's so even. We need triple overtime, to decide who's better, and we're going to put it all on the line because 20 minutes isn't long enough. And I'm okay with them breaking the structure of the title the Continental title in order to tell the story of we need a longer time to solve this. I'm fine with that. But beyond that, I have issues. But I think you're right. They'll find a way to turn this into something. But it's just been sort of hovering there for a while with contradictions
but at the same time, I mean, again, people kind of got tired of Moxley being the focus of everything, so now he's in the background a little bit more, and I think that's okay.
I don't have a problem with Moxley being I don't think he's in the background. I think he's having a good match every week that you can look forward to, and I think that's his gimmick. I have a good match every week that you can look forward to. I just don't. But I think there's but
relative to when he was the champion,
and for sure,
that's all.
Yeah, and you have to rotate top guys in and out, but that's not my issue. I mean, my issue is just, what does he stand for, and how are we supposed to feel about him? And if we're supposed to feel all the good things, doesn't he have a problem with Marina Shafir and Wheeler Yuta and the tactics of Pac and all that? Like, I just want that to be cleaner.
Okay.
All right, so Brody King came out and called out Swerve, said, you know, the whole thing about who the most dangerous man in AEW is. And Brody's like, I want to prove that I am. Then we got a fight between them, and then Swerve ended up hanging Brody King over the top rope. He was inside the ring. He wasn't like literally hanging without support, but he was kind of knocked out, and they said he was turning blue. Bandito ran out for the save, and Excalibur said Brody's face was turning purple, actually, if we're going to be accurate with what he said. What'd you feel about the angle and just the elevation of Brody King right now, getting a chance to work a program against a top-tier established heel in Swerve Strickland now?
Yeah, I mean, for one, I was like, to be totally honest, I'm like, it's almost 9:00. I'd like to get to the main event, I think, at some point. But again, pretty compelling stuff. I think clearly defined who's the heel here and who's the baby face, and they're building to the pay-per-view. It was to the point. It builds more interest in the match and more clearly defined roles. So I was good with it.
My issue with Swerve, and one of the things I've been positive about elsewhere on the show, is again I'll put it on the screen, the clean simplicity and symmetry of this Bosch refrigerator, and you don't need to go over the top all the time. And Swerve and Hangman played into each other's worst tendencies and went so over the top with home invasions and houses burning down and hangings and over the top threats that are just so outside the bounds of what should matter in pro wrestling, which is I'm going to beat you in the ring. I like the notion of the euphemism of who's the most dangerous man in AEW, but I don't think you need to do it literally by going, well, I'm the most dangerous man because I'm going to hang you until you turn purple. I wish Swerve pulled back, just like Hangman did a little bit today and last week also. It just feels too over the top. It feels hack. It feels try hard. It feels desperate, whatever. It feels like a fourth grade. I always say this. So much of what I'm critical of in wrestling is imagining a fourth grader going, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? And then you need an adult in the room to go, well, it would be, but that's not how pro wrestling works. You don't just every crazy idea you have that you might think gets some ephemeral short-term pop. If it throws off the structure, the rules of engagement, the tone and tenor of the show, or you're doing it in a context that isn't a main event top-tier feud, you dull it. It becomes dull. Like, oh, he hung him. Do we need Swerve? Like, someone needs to be the adult in the back going, this feud, it's the most dangerous man in AEW. I get it, but I don't think we need a hanging. Like, I think, can we be good enough at our job to not have to have the iPad on the outside of the refrigerator and just don't gimmick it up with a hanging. And so in the chat, Derek Mitchell had a super chat on this that I'll put back up. Why is my not fine? There it is. Not a fan of hangings in wrestling. Can you imagine if Swerve was hung by Brody King with a chain and what that image would look like on TV? Does AEW have anyone say that might not be a good idea? And Standard Deviation said, I think a fan brought that up to Hangman several years ago when he stopped taking his rope to the ring as a result. I think they're aware of the potential optics of hanging.
And
Standard Deviation adds, Swerve using the chain as a heel would usually result in the chain being used against him. So hopefully they have a creative way to get around that. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
I mean, again, this is probably where I'm. And again, what is this match? Fourth, fifth from the top, probably.
Yep.
I agree, it's too much. I'm also somewhat jaded because, like, if you do go back to 1980s wrestling, this happened like all the time. And so I've seen it so much in wrestling myself that I don't give it much of a second thought. Whether it be that or Smoky Mountain in the 90s or whatever. I mean, it's kind of old school Southern style wrestling. And I'm not saying that makes it right. People didn't take it hopefully nearly as literally back then, or although maybe they did, maybe that's why it worked. But I've seen it so much in my viewing of wrestling that it didn't even, I went to get a glass of grapefruit juice or something. It just didn't do much. And I thought, okay, well, this is kind of severe, but there you go.
Yeah. One critique from a structural logic standpoint is SF Niners fan 23. So Brody comes out unscheduled, yet Swerve just happened to be hiding like he knew Brody's segment was up next. I I didn't think of that. That's the type of thing I usually think of. Like, I was thinking about it earlier with MJF, and if the Callis family, had to be planned, and how would he know? I think they did play it up as an unscheduled promo, Dan. Like Brody's just coming out impromptu.
Can't remember. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
But in defense of the segment, and to about, and I think that's probably why I didn't critique it, is Brody called him out.
Mm-hmm.
So now, did he come out a little quickly? Yeah, I like the 4, 5, 6 beats where you can imagine somebody going, "Hey, Swerve, you just got called out," and he's like, "What?" And give him like, we want to be able to conjure up that there's like a 5 to 10 second stretch of time where Swerve has to get pulled away from whatever he was doing to come to the ring, rather than this notion everyone's standing right by the entrance tunnel. That's small, but it's a detail that sometimes they do. It's not crazy that I bring this up. They like literally most of the time wait a few beats before someone answers a challenge, and when they don't, it stands out as kind of fakey. This was a little bit in that way, but at least it was a call out. It wasn't like he was hiding under the desk waiting to attack him or something. So I guess I'm more okay with it in that sense.
Sure.
Standard deviation, by the way, in the Mox thing goes, it's like going to a family reunion and Mox is a cool uncle, and then the rest are annoying, and you just smile and try not to get caught up in conversation with them. Yeah, I think that's a good description of it. All right, so then we had Wheeler Yuta remove his hood in a backstage segment in a stairwell or whatever. There's always got to be exposed bricks in any Death Rider segment backstage. He said losing the hair was the darkest day of his career. He complained about fans screaming mean, hurtful things to him, but he said his Death Rider cohorts have his back. Shafir told Toni Storm she better shoot from the hip and make her laugh. And Mox said there's no team like them willing to go as far or as hard. And he said he and Takeshita will go as long as it takes to see it through to the very end. So, I mean, it was just, solid, straightforward promo, covered a few bases. It was, again, a little all over the place, character-wise, but we covered that. So then the two main events. Tekla Thunder Rosa, AEW Women's title match. Tekla won in 11 minutes. A clean win. Dan, did you expect longer, different finish, different style of match? And how do you feel about Tekla's performance in particular with the sample size we've had for her now that she's the champion? Did you think she represented herself well here with that lofty position?
Yeah, I was a little surprised it was as one-sided as it was, but I would not have argued against that. I thought, they're building that more for her in Statlander, and Thunder Rosa is popular. That's kind of her home area to some degree.
Yep.
And so they took advantage of that, and I think it was probably the right move. I mean, she did the old "I pick you up, I'm not going to pin you," and then went ahead and pinned her, and that's a pretty decisive win.
Yeah.
Given the fact we had another main event to go, I think the length was fine. That was, it wasn't a match that was going to draw the biggest crowd, really. So I think that it's fine that they went about as long as they did, and I liked using that to actually elevate the champion. I thought that was smart.
When she lifted her shoulders, I was like, I hope that's not the excuse they're using to soften Rosa's win by saying, well, Tekla could have won earlier. But I was also thinking, are we going to have Thunder Rosa basically get pinned twice? Because when you lift someone's shoulders and then you pin them a minute or two later, you're kind of beating them twice. So I haven't asked on this, and I don't. But like this came across as, let's check. Like Paul Heyman would in ECW. You mentioned ECW earlier with Mikey Whipwreck and other things. No matter how big a star was when they came into ECW, I think it was on their first appearance, Paul Heyman would have them do a job. No matter who you were, do a job. You are like, it's just really good philosophy on this. I think I interviewed him at the time, and he went into explaining why in a Torch Talk. Sure, it's in a back issue if you go VIP and look up all those transcribed interviews. And so maybe this was an ego check for Thunder Rosa. Like, we're gonna job you out in El Paso. We'll rebuild you. And so that's what, and I don't know that that's the case. I don't know that there's any issue with her, but it was so jarring to watch a babyface like this lose to somebody in just 11 minutes. It wasn't 6 minutes, but it also wasn't 18. The length of the match just sort of felt like, So yeah, I don't know what to make of it. But I mean, I thought it was a good back and forth spirited battle. I thought Thunder Rosa came across fine, but it was a conduit to get to Statlander.
Yeah. And Thunder Rosa, at times has been hotter than she is now in the company. So they can rebuild her, but again, you have a champion who's still getting established. I I liked it. I like that. Again, I really liked what they did with the tag match, but this was, 1/3 as much of a squash, obviously. I wouldn't even use that term necessarily, but it was not completely 50-50 either.
Yep.
And that's good. Like you don't want to be completely predictable in your matches on TV. So I thought it was a good use of Thunder Rosa, and it's a good way to build to the pay-per-view.
Chris Statlander had a different demeanor to her. It was slow, deliberate, intense. It was interesting, and I think she might be onto something. There's sort of this stoic, almost mesmerizing intensity to her, and I'm like, maybe her gimmick is going to narrowly focus something she can pull off because she is in the bottom 4% of actors in pro wrestling history. And that's a compliment, because some would say you really should say the bottom 1%. I am saying the bottom 4%, Dan. But
Wade,
I mean,
we went on about this last time. I feel a little guilty.
But I am. This is yes, in a sense, a backhanded compliment. But if you want to search for somebody who is so inept and ill-equipped to be an actor on television, as Chris Statlander has clearly shown herself to be, wonderful person, talented in the ring, people love her. There's a reason she keeps getting pushed, but acting is not her thing. So let's find something she can pull off that actually fits her, that isn't pretending to be an alien and bopping people in some indie-rific nonsense mid-card act gimmick thing. So maybe we're onto something here, Dan. Honestly, I mean, I know I wrapped it in a bunch of like snarky comments, but the demeanor today, I actually was struck like, maybe if this is what she's going to do, let's do it. Let's keep doing this.
Let me just say, I thought she presented herself well in the few seconds I saw her on TV tonight. And I felt a little like I was piling on her last time, so I'm going to withhold comment beyond that for tonight, because she did not do an interview. So that I recall. So I don't have anything to critique her about other than what I saw looked fine.
Yep. Standard Deviation says Statlander's like that alien lady from The Fifth Element. Derek Mitchell says Chris Statlander's tried everything at this point, and she's flirting with Eric Young gimmicks, in terms of how many one person can have. Zach Barber says Silent Assassin would work for Stat. Interesting observation. Standard Deviation said it struck me in this match that Techless Spider Arch is conceptually a slower version of Roman's ooh ah before the spear. Derek Mitchell says I wasn't a fan of Thunder Rosa being granted a world title match tonight, not through an eliminator or tournament, but by Provocavision.
I don't know. But again, I would argue that you give people hometown title shots sometime. Like this was her. That happens in boxing too, man. I mean, that's like, you'd want to try. If you ask, say, well, she's proven herself over the years, and we want to sell a few tickets to this show. It's fine.
Derek Mitchell says Excalibur neglected to mention Rosa had 2 title matches versus Timeless Tony Storm at AEW Dynasty in 2024 and Mariah May at the end of 2024. So there's that. He did mention, though, that she has never been pinned or submitted for her title. She forfeited almost 4 years ago. So there we are. Ducky D says if Stat gets props this week for being stoic and silent next week, she'll show up dressed as a ninja. All right. Moving on with the Tommaso Ciampa segment as a buffer between the 2 main events. Ciampa said Fletcher gave the TNT title a makeover without his consent. He talks about the TNT title like a friend or a pet, personifies it. He said that when they run back their match, he'll regain the title. And if he play games, if he has to play games to do it, he will, such as earning number 1 contendership against Mark Briscoe. And then FTR walked out with Stokely. They wanted to unite with him. They said we can take over this company together. Ciampa said, I didn't like you before. 10 years ago, I don't like you now. And Ciampa punched Dax because there wasn't a no contact clause with them. So it was pretty straightforward. Heels court a babyface. Babyface says no, and now Dax and Ciampa are having a match on Collision, Dan.
I guess. I mean, that's what they said. I'll see a Collision, but then I thought they said that is FTR wrestling the Rascals next week on Dynamite. Then is that?
Well, I didn't keep track enough to know. I would have
that's
to look
what
back
I'm saying.
at it.
I
wasn't
sure they were. He said, "Well, I didn't know they had a match. I didn't think they announced the Collision match that I could tell." I was like, they said, "I'll see you at Collision." I'm like, okay, they must be having a match.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure because then I thought they said they were wrestling the Rascals on Collision, but maybe that's on Dynamite next week. I might have missed it, so maybe some of the chat can help. But
Yeah,
I was confused by that whole thing. I was like, if they're having a match on Collision, okay, fine, makes sense. But and then they're doing the whole thing with the TNT belt like it's Exotic Adrian Street or something. I don't know. It's okay,
yeah.
whatever. I mean, is it that offensive, really? I mean, he can do what he wants with the belt. When you win it back, you can make it bald or something, I guess. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. All right. So then main event time, the trios title match, and Okada, Fletcher, and Davis win. We mentioned Davis getting the win was cool. I was expecting if that team lost, Davis would take the fall and be like, oh, that was predictable. But instead, he did get the win with a pile driver. Okada did hit a Rainmaker right beforehand, so he certainly had help. But this was a chaos, a lot of chaos, a lot of extended stretches of the referee going, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to watch three people beat up one. There was a match earlier where like there were two pins going on at once or something. In the women's tag match, I didn't like that. I think like there should be ref shouldn't count a pin if there's two people in the ring who aren't legal. But I didn't like when the Viking Raiders always got to like score wins in WWE where one of them was pushing on the back of the other and they were illegally in the ring, and they finally stopped doing that and posed afterwards. So anyway, but I mean, it was a good main event. You know, yeah. I think it earned its 13 minutes. I don't think it would have overstayed its welcome lasting a bit longer. What stood out to you, Dan?
Yeah, and I just want to mention, I'm glad they put Ciampa on the show there. I think it's good to make him stay important and in the stories and all that. But yeah, I thought it was a really good match. You know, MJF helped cheat Hangman, and they're building to that. And again, I thought if you're going to have those guys win, Mark Davis has been really good. Like, you know, and underappreciated probably. And so like I said, I think that was just genuine, like, joy, like that, you know, he's still a big part of things. And at one point it looked like he might not be. So good match. I think this is a fine use of the trios titles, right? Like you're using it to supplement other feuds, but people still, at least some of the people really want the belts. And I could see, you know, Okada being a real prick about having the belt with Fletcher and not Takeshita. So there's a lot going on there. I thought it was good. I thought it was a fun match and good show, good way to end the show. I mean, it's just like, again, it kind of bookended everything really nicely.
Yep, I agree. Let's just wrap up with some comments from JB by email. JB from Detroit says it felt like a changing formula episode, which is interesting. I love that they led the show with MJF and Knight for the world title, giving that a taste of main event scene on a regular Dynamite is probably the best way to ease him into the title picture more permanently. Very good in-match storytelling too. Okada in the international title would be a perfect next feud for Knight. Totally agree with those points. I like the team of Orange and Darby. I think that they should roll with them for a while and see where the crowd might take them. Yep. Is it possible David Finlay will give the shot needed for the poorly introduced Kid and Connors? I feel as though the interplay of Kid and Finlay in particular is enough to get the act over. I don't want to say all's well that ends well, but I believe that might be the case here. I think that's true, Dan. I mean, sometimes, you know, you do it in the wrong order, but as long as you land in the right place after 6 weeks or whatever, it's fine. Not ideal, but fine. Inspiration and great at what they do. They really know their roles, and they aren't afraid to lose a relatively quick squash when they should, which can't always be said for AEW. The Brawling Birds also have a very high ceiling, in my opinion. Good. Wow, 2 real squash matches in a row with the Brawling Birds and then Hangman. I don't know if I ever remember that in AEW. I did not come to AEW for instant classics. I came here to be a top guy. Absolutely love this line from Ciampa tonight. Wrestling needs more of that mentality. I don't know how Christian Cage will feel about that, if that's setting up a feud with them. Oddly enough, Ciampa looks like he would fit perfectly into a faction with FTR. Yes. AEW rarely does impromptu main events. It made it feel much more reasonable and special when it's actually done sparingly. I'm really looking forward to Fletcher versus Speedball next week. I wonder how Okada and Fletcher, now being the Trios champs, will interplay with their ongoing storyline with Takeshita. And Tekla Stomp is a much better finisher than her spear. It looks brutal. One of the better stomps I've seen, although she had to do it twice because the first one hit more of the neck, as you know, just pointed out. As always, love the show and go VIP. Dan, anything stand out on JB's email there you want to expand on or comment on? Or
I mean, I agreed with all the comments, so I it's kind of nodding along there. Yeah, I mean, again, it's not a lot to criticize tonight, which is a good thing. Might make for a little less compelling, back and forth with folks, but yeah, I mean, good show, good good,
Yep.
well organized, well set up. They built some stuff, kind of what we talked about at the beginning. I mean, it's a very nice show to have 12 days out from the pay-per-view.
It's like
11, whatever.
Just a lunch bucket effort from AEW. Just like the old cliche, just show up and do your job and put on a good.
And everybody worked hard,
Yep.
like it was, yeah.
They pushed the right people in the right way in a position where, I might critique a Moxley or whatever, but I mean, this is just a AEW going, we got good talent. We have stories we believe in. We have matches we believe in. Wrestlers are on journeys. Brody's on a journey. Kevin Knight's on a journey. Orange Cassidy and Darby are on a journey. The heels like Clark and now Finlay joining Gabe Kidd. They're on a journey. Like, it's about what are people trying to achieve, and are we telling a story where it looks like they're aiming to further that or have setbacks? I mean, it's simple, basic stuff. And you, like I say, believe in pro wrestling. Just believe in the structure, in the formula. Get fans emotionally invested in wrestlers succeeding or failing as they try to achieve a worthwhile goal. We can critique in the big picture. There's way too many belts. There's, we shouldn't be hanging somebody for an upper mid-card feud at the beginning of the feud, even if it's the most dangerous man in wrestling, subtext to it. Whatever. There's, smaller critiques, but overall, this was something that I would just, if I'm Tony Khan, I would aim to have be 8 out of 10 shows just feel like this.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Very good. Dan, anything else you want to bring up?
No, fun show. Always fun to talk to you, Wade. I'm glad we fit this in, and
absolutely
appreciate the invite.
Thank you, Dan. We'll talk to you soon. Go VIP, everybody. pwtorch.com/govip. I'll say that slower. pwtorch.com/govip for full details on full VIP membership. You can also go to Patreon and search PWTorch VIP to get a 7-day free trial, unlocking our VIP shows, including the commercial-free versions of our podcast. With a full VIP membership, you get the ad-free version of our website also. You can also go to Apple Podcasts and search PWTorch, and you'll see a charcoal gray logo pop up. You can sign up for free samples of VIP shows on that feed, no matter where whatever podcast app you're listening on. But if you're in particular using the native Apple Podcast app on your iPhone, you can unlock with a 3-day free trial all the VIP shows and sample what we're doing on the VIP side of things. And then you can let it roll over if you don't cancel and have a membership using your Apple account, using your iPhone native app. Just search PWTorch for that. All right, thanks, everybody. And check out The Flagship if you haven't yet with Jason Powell. We had a lot of fun stuff on that show and some good conversation. And, of course, check out our website, pwtorch.com, every day. And we'll talk to you, if not sooner, Friday after SmackDown.